Welcome to Growth Marketer Academy with Ryan and Andrea Eldridge. When it comes to using content to generate leads in a business-to-business environment, it requires a very specific approach.
It's just like the field of dreams, right? If you write it, they will come.
I wish. It requires a magic blend of great writing, engaging, helpful content, and timely promotion.
And we're here to tell you how to craft this magic blend.
And get the content that generates leads in today's saturated online environment.
This is Ryan Eldridge.
And this is Andrea Eldridge.
Welcome to Growth Marketer Academy.
This is episode number 10 of the Growth Marketer Academy podcast.
I'm Ryan Eldridge, Chief Strategist at Squirrel Digital Marketing.
And this is Andrea Eldridge, Creative Director at Squirrel Digital Marketing.
This is the last episode in our series about how to gain leads for your business without cold calling or knocking on doors.
Not our last episode ever, but just the last in this series.
Yeah, after this, we get into more really creative content. The last 10 episodes has really been about our core content, trying to get everybody out there to know what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to get into some really good stuff.
We get to specific build tactics, on it, yes.
Specific tactics for different platforms like Instagram, or how to build a squeeze page, and all kinds of good stuff.
So if you've skipped around, make sure you go back and check out our episodes on audience analysis, keyword matrix, effective email marketing, pay-per-click SEO, and social media. Yes, we have covered a lot of ground so far.
Well, you forgot competitor analysis.
I did.
One of the episodes too.
That's true.
But there is a precise order to getting business-to-business lead generation done right. So don't miss out on what we've covered up to this point. And if you have, just go back and listen to the other episodes.
Yep.
In order.
Yes.
In order. I don't have to tell you again.
It does matter.
Yeah, that's my dad voice.
All right. So today we're talking about content and how to use content to generate business-to-business leads. And really, the first and most key piece of this is writing content that speaks to your lead. I mean, you want to make sure that you're writing appropriately for the questions and pain points that your lead has. So how do you know what they're interested in?
Well, obviously, you're going to go back to your audience analysis.
Obviously.
That you would have done in episode 2. Take a look at your specific personas, figure out what their pain points were. Brainstorm content ideas that focus on those pain points. But one of the things you want to keep in mind is what stage of the buyer's journey are they in, right? If they're not aware of your product, your solution, or your company, you've got a bigger hill to climb, so to speak. You've got to educate them on what it is you are and what you're doing. What we call that is, like, in the awareness stage, it all has to do with making them aware that there's even a problem in the first place.
Yes.
One of my favorite campaigns about awareness was, and this has been dating me back in the 70s, was the shampoo. It was no, not the shampoo, I'm sorry. It was Whisk. It was Whisk laundry detergent. They had a campaign called Ring Around the Collar.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't. I think I was like 2, but yes.
But back then, nobody knew what Ring Around the Collar was. And so what they did was they kind of invented this thing called the Ring Around the Collar, which men used to wear all white dress shirts, mm-hmm. and they would get this kind of sweat ring around their collar, and they'd say, "Oh, do you have unsightly ring around the collar? Use Whisk, blah, blah, blah." And it was a great awareness campaign because people started looking at their shirt and going, "Oh, I do have that weird thing." Or there was a great...
There's the gingivitis thing, right? Wasn't gingivitis. It was basically halitosis, something they just invented a condition.
They had to make up a problem, make you aware of what that problem was, and lead you to the solution.
That being said, bad breath is not a made-up problem, but the word halitosis had to be created by this awareness campaign. So keep in mind, these aren't long-form ads, but you do need to use your ads and keyword knowledge to decide on your topic and how you're going to frame your content. So all of the stuff that we've talked about up until this point fits in. Also, from last episode, you're stalking those potential leads on Facebook, right? That's giving you a lot of important information about what they like, what they're interested in, what they are learning more about, and what they engage with, so that you can make sure that you can integrate those details you've learned about your leads into this deciding pool of how to structure your content and what you're going to write about.
And if you're stalking them, you know the kinds of conversations they're having, and so you can insert your content to answer questions they already have. Right?
So like, for example, let's say you sell business liability insurance and your potential lead that you're going to be targeting is a CFO. So he's going to be focused on cost-related issues, things like premiums, deductibles, potential costs of a lawsuit without coverage versus with coverage. So some potential topics could be the most expensive lawsuits companies face. This would ideally be specific to the industry you're targeting, of course, if you're working on a specific vertical. How much deductible can my company afford is another option. Just so kind of try to think of content that's something someone in your vertical that you're targeting would see and go, yeah, I do want to learn more about that. I'm interested in that. It's not selling your product. You're not at this point trying to use content to give specific information about your product or your service. You're actually creating content that's useful around topics your lead is interested in.
Especially in the awareness phase. If they go down to the next level, which is evaluation, you can do evaluation articles where you're comparing your product or service to someone else's product or service. Like you might say, well, why is my satellite service better than cable television, for example? Those kinds of comparison articles, that's when somebody already knows they have a problem and they're actively looking for a solution to that problem. That's an evaluation stage. And then, of course, the last stage, you're going to write articles or content or videos or whatever around purchase signals, things like, the ways to implement your product the best way, or ways that your product's going to be able to save money quickly, how to implement faster, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we've talked about the buying stage words before when we've talked about things like least expensive, highest quality. So that would be things like, saving money on blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Those would be more end of funnel questions that you could drive content around, but it's going to be a lot more competitive for your keywords.
If we talk about content, like we're usually talking about content as written content, like blogs, but it can also be videos, it can be podcasts. And an interesting one was Sephora. They have an interesting thing where they do we just did a segment on them for Good Day Sacramento in Christmas time. And they have a little makeup box that's like $10. It's a subscription box for $10. And in that subscription box just has a bunch of samples, right?
Yeah, small bits and pieces of different products to try.
But this sample box really for them is a piece of content, because what they do inside that box is they try to get you to come into the store with educational, like how to put the makeup on, or
promotional events, right, geared towards their subscription box members. Yeah,
come in and get a private sit down with one of our, what do they call them, beauticians? So get a private sit down with them, and they'll actually apply the makeup that's in the box onto your mug to make you look adorable. So even though it's not written content, it's not video content, it's not an ebook, that is content. It costs $10 to get it, and people want and they see value in that, and then it's just leading them to come back to the store.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That's true. So the Sephora example is great on a consumer level basis where you're, engaging with warmer leads earlier on in their buying cycle. A lot of times in a business to business market, you have a much longer buying cycle. You have to spend a longer period of time warming up your audience. And so content is great for that. What you're looking to do here is position yourself as an expert helper. You want to drive traffic to content instead of your product page, because if you drive traffic to your product page before they are even aware of what your brand does, and how it's helpful, it's going to be a waste of time, and they're going to probably not be ready to commit super early on. But you can use content to show yourself and your brand as this expert in the market. Be the provider of information. Don't try to sell your product or service at this stage. So in your example about Sephora, they provide a library of how-to tutorials. They basically are creating videos on a regular basis, a lot of times with experts in the industry, showing you things like, how to apply eyeliner, how to do nail art. And they've created this library of information that causes people to just regularly go there to consume the content. And if you're creating this trust and developing this idea that you are the expert in this market, then when they do want to go buy something, or they're not sure exactly what lipstick color to choose, they're going to go into the store associated with the content they've been watching for the last 6 months. So that same idea can apply to the business to business market and model, because you want to basically use your content to warm your leads.
Yeah. And for an example, in the marketing world, HubSpot does a really great job at this, right? HubSpot rarely will drive you directly to a sales page. Instead, they have two different avenues where they try to sell directly to the consumer by educating the consumer on how to do marketing and how to get remarketing and how to do marketing automation and things like that. And then they have a whole second side where they're trying to teach and help agencies use their products to make more money for their clients. And so they really have a great machine going in terms of their content marketing. If you want to know anything about marketing, you'll probably see some sort of HubSpot article within your search. And that just positions them as one of the leaders. Moz also does a great job at that, Moz.com.
And it basically helps you build trust with your potential customer. You want to make them comfortable with you being helpful, not a perpetual salesperson. And you'll be the expert that they think of when that relevant pain point strikes and they're thinking, oh gosh, who do I go to resolve this insurance question? Well, the one that I've been getting these helpful articles about for the last 6 months. There's an example here too. I was actually looking for some information about how to file some trademark paperwork. And so when I was doing the searches for that information, I was looking for things like file national service trademark renewal, for example. And in that research phase, there were certain firms that were providing information, law firms in this case, that were providing information that was helpful. And I was trying to kind of follow along with the tips and those that provided relevant information for me. And at some point in this cycle, I realized I don't have time for this. I'm not the one that's going to be able to do this process. And so I went back to those firms that I had established this basis of information with first. It gave me a better feeling that I would be able to communicate with them effectively, that they were able to explain concepts in a way that I could follow along with, something that from a perspective of a non-attorney is an important piece of the puzzle, because you can so easily get kind of talked around when it comes to certain professionals in certain fields. So I used the content that they had created to decide on the service provider that we ultimately went with to do this service.
Yeah. So if you need some tips on how to determine trending topics in your vertical, a really great place to go is BuzzSumo. Mm-hmm. BuzzSumo, you can use it for free. You can type in your keyword and it'll show you essentially the top articles that are being shared on social media around your keyword.
Okay.
Now, there's a paid version of this service where it'll actually unlock things like traffic data and things like that. So if you pay, I think it's $80 a month you can pay to BuzzSumo, and it'll give you even more deep data. But start with just the free version. People are only going to share articles that they find helpful, and that can kind of give you some information about what articles to write about.
Yeah.
You can also go to the forums or the chat pages where your groups are going. So remember your audience analysis, your competitor analysis. You know generally where your targets are hanging out. So go to those places, find out what they're saying. Again, on your audience analysis, you would have likely spoken to your sales team or your customer service representatives and figured out what questions your customers are asking. So you can just write content around those kinds of questions, like how does your product compare to another product, or how long can I expect till I get a return on my investment on your product, or what is your if you're a financial firm, what is your return on investments, or how much money should I risk in the market, things like that. So
another good place for information is the forums, chat pages, and industry Facebook groups that your leads are frequenting. Yep. Again, you found this information out when you were doing your audience analysis, but also your social media stalking techniques that we talked about last episode. So again, look at what topics are trending, what questions are your potential customers looking for answers to.
Yeah, and if you did your competitive analysis right, you probably subscribe to the newsletters for all of your competitors, so you can see what they're talking about, and you can do a better article version of what they're doing. Another really fun thing to do is if like you're like, oh man, I just don't know what to write about, you can do what's called a roundup article, where you come up with a simple question about, like, how do I build a computer mouse, right? Let's say that's the article you're going to write. And so you find that there's already 20 articles about it. Just read those 20 articles, take the top points from each of those articles and rewrite those points, and just call that a roundup article. Hey, so I was over on, mousesforyou.com, and I saw they wrote this great article about this, and this was my impression of their article.
Once you've decided on your topics, now you want to create some lead magnets tied to that content.
Lead magnet? What the heck is that?
We've never mentioned lead magnet before.
I have no idea.
If we have,
probably have,
maybe we should re-mention. You're right.
It's a piece. It's a word that you don't normally run across. Like you're not in the grocery store and you're looking at lettuce. You go, oh, lead magnet. That makes sense.
That's true. So a lead magnet is something that you would use to entice someone to trade an email address in many cases, so that you can continue to outreach to them. Something that they would want to download, something they'd want to access. In most cases, it's related content. So it's things like value adds, like a checklist, tools list, expanded guides. You're not just necessarily looking for like a longer narrative of something that they're already finding. You're wanting something related because you want it to speak to your lead. And if your lead is interested in this specific topic you're creating content around, make sure that the lead magnet is relevant. But it's not so much like something that's long and detailed, but it's just something useful.
Yeah. What I usually recommend to people is if they're going to write a lead magnet, consider what stage the buyer's journey that the person's in on the article that you're writing. So if you're writing an awareness article and you're trying to, hey, have you ever heard of ring around the collar? Let me tell you about what ring around the collar is, and here's how you generally would solve that issue. The lead magnet you should attach to that should be whatever next step they need to take in order to solve that problem. Right?
Okay.
And so if it was literally a ring around the collar, it might be a coupon for Whisk or something, or it might be, download a sample packet, which would be weird to download a sample packet. But you get the idea is it should be helping them take the next step in the journey, which would be evaluation, for example. So you might evaluate different products, or you might show them, your product line compared to someone else's product line, or you might compare your benefits to somebody else's benefits in that lead magnet. Or it's something that when they are going to evaluate, you make their job easier. You say, hey, Progressive Insurance does a great job of this. They say, we'll give you our rates plus the rates of our closest competitors. Uh-huh. And when they do that, they're essentially showing you the evaluation stage, but they're controlling the environment. They're not going to show you always the best competitors. Mm-hmm. They're going to show you the competitors that they know they have a good chance of beating, either on price or on value or some other benefit statement, right?
Yeah.
And so that's essentially the same thing you're doing here in a lead magnet. Is if you're saying, hey, I'm going to give you here's an article about how to write engaging emails. My lead magnet might be something like, here's the swipe file for my top 100 subject lines.
Yeah.
Right. And okay. Yeah, that's my next step because I'm going to need to write subject lines.
Yeah.
You just want to lead them to that next step.
And ultimately, that's really your whole point here in creating content with the goal of generating leads is how do you turn your content that you're providing into a lead generation source? And that is with a lead magnet, something that at this point, they've read through your material, you've established value in the content that you've created and given them for free. And the only reason that they would be inclined to give you a trade to get something more is if what you provided them for free initially is worthwhile. And now they go, oh, I do want that next thing. So it ties in together, but it's really an important step because you don't want to just create content for content's sake. You want to be able to convert those readers into actual trackable leads. Yeah. And I know we'll go into lead magnets in its own separate episode at a later point, but the one point I will mention is don't make it too hard for your lead to actually get your lead magnet. Don't require them to give like name, address, phone number, social security. The harder you make it, the less likely you are going to be to convert. So really think of what your goal is at this stage with the content that you're doing. Design your lead magnet around that. Are you looking for emails in order to be able to generate a Facebook audience or potentially do some follow-up email outreach? Then just make it an email address. Yeah. If you're looking for something different, just structure your lead magnet around what your goal is.
Consider that every piece of information you ask for is going to decrease your conversions by 30%. So if you have to have their name, then their name. If you have to have their email address, then their email address. But in general, you want to have as little fields as possible.
Yeah. And
one of the best ways to do it right now, like the popular trend right now as we speak here in, I don't even know what this is. Is it April?
April, yes.
2018.
Yeah.
The hot trend right now is Facebook Messenger conversions. So you can put a Facebook Messenger on your page. They can ask for the lead magnet right there, and you can send it through Facebook Messenger. So
a few different options. Yeah.
They don't even feel like they're having to give you information, but you're getting the information anyway because they're being added to your Facebook audience.
And that's particularly helpful if you're promoting your content on Facebook, obviously. In this case, if you're just driving traffic through, say, an AdWords campaign or just general SEO-based traffic, that Facebook Messenger might not be quite as relevant to that customer, but a lot of content these days is promoted through social media.
Yeah.
Next. So what's next?
So you want to write for the platform as well as your reader. Mm-hmm. So for an example, if you're writing for some piece of content, you're creating a piece of content for Instagram or Pinterest, you're going to want to make sure that it's very image heavy.
Yes.
You want to mirror the style that others have posted. So if yours is just kind of this wackadoo looking thing, people are going to, you may scare some people. They may not read your content or look at what you're doing. So you want to make sure that it fits.
Right? Yeah. Keep in mind when it comes to certain platforms these days, particularly those that are social media based, your potential lead is there for something other than necessarily seeing your content in many cases. You want it to fit in. You don't want it to stand out as something that either looks like an ad or looks like something completely out of place. If they're in a specific platform looking at images, you want to make sure that your images blend in.
For an example, on Facebook, right? You might, if you're let's say you're a bank and you're trying to get more, loans, you might have kind of a stuffy, like I've got to look professional, and so you get that nice Apple white background behind you, and you're like, loans today are very difficult, right? You might create this like very special, like, ooh, so high production. But the problem is that's not going to work on Facebook. Everybody's going, oh, that's a freaking commercial. And they're going to skip right past it. You're going to waste all your money. But if you hold your phone up and you're like, oh my gosh, guys, I got to tell you, I work at Bank of America and I just found out we're dropping our loan rates to 3.79%. You got to get in here right now. Oh my God, they're coming right now. Click. That would be like, whoa, that's a piece of content I'm looking at on Facebook because it's more appropriate for Facebook, right? The shaky camera, the more amateur look, rather than the super professional look. Whereas on something like LinkedIn, you're going to want to make that look a little more professional. Or on Instagram, you're going to want to make it look like an actual nice photograph rather than like this dark photograph with a bright background. You're like, I can't even understand what this person's doing. Yeah.
That makes sense. Now, obviously, other formats are going to be more appropriate to other sites. So if you're posting content on, say, an industry forum or something that's more, data specific, for example, or statistic heavy, then, break out your inner engineer and just copy that style. You want to make sure your voice is consistent. Consistent is the great. Yeah. And don't babble on, about your loves and your interests or your personal anecdotes. This isn't your personal blog. This is content that you're creating for others in the business community. So you're going to want to get to the point. I've seen a lot of pages where I'm looking specifically for information and I have to scroll through so much junk before I can get to it. And I get turned off if that's not the mindset that I'm in at that stage.
Consider how you would personally consume content. If you go to a website and you quickly scan it and then just bring out the stuff that you want, and then you start reading some of the content that you're interested in after you've scanned it, keep in mind your clients or your potential leads are going to be doing that too. And so if it's just this one big huge block of text, you're going to be like, nobody's going to be able to scan that. They're going to get there and go, okay.
I'm going to just skip right past because, whoa, that's going to take me too much time. And we all have very short attention spans these days, as we all know. So make it consumable while still being appropriate to the format that you're presenting in.
Yeah. So what if you're not a writer?
Who isn't? I mean, right? No, I'm just kidding.
You spend probably, I'd say 70% of your time writing content.
Yes.
Because everyone else here is terrible at it. Right? So you spend all your time doing that.
I do a lot of content writing. It's true. But it's not the same for everybody. And it's difficult. It's not something that comes naturally to everybody. And that's okay. There is a huge market of people who do write content all day, every day. Yeah. And it is the best time ever to have to find a copywriter because there's so many out there. It can also be somewhat challenging to weed through those that maybe don't write as well, but are still saying that they're a copywriter. So there's a process we're going to get into here about how to weed through copywriters and make sure you find one that's really got the talent you need.
So we've done this process before for the Squirrel blog. We've done it before for clients. We're currently doing it for Nerds on Call because we're trying to kind of freshen up some of the content on our website. So this is what our suggested method of finding a good copywriter is. First, head over to problogger.com. Look at their jobs board, or look at the different resumes or postings that other people have done, and see what people are currently writing about in your specific vertical, right? So,
well, and the bloggers that are actively writing for your vertical, I mean, that's going to be easier than having someone who's never had any experience in HVAC to suddenly learn all about it in order to start writing for you and your website. So try to find someone who's got some experience in the vertical you're targeting.
And then what you want to do is look at the other ads that are targeting people that are writing for your article and or writing for your vertical, and see what they're paying. See what your competitors are paying for bloggers, right, or writers, because you don't want to go in there and pay too much for your writers, but you also don't want to pay too little. You don't want to be the lowest bidder because you're going to get the worst. And you don't want to be the highest bidder because then you're going to get everybody applying and you're going to get bogged down and looking through candidates. So you generally want to find somewhere in the middle.
And payment is typically calculated by the word, just so that you're aware going in there. You want to basically aim to pay mid to high range for your vertical to attract decent candidates.
Yeah. So then you want to post an ad on ProBlogger's job board. You can go to problogger.com/jobs and just post a free job.
Yep. And you can pay to make it a featured job if you want to. It may speed up the process and you'll likely get more candidates because it'll be more apparent to people who are copywriters that are using that site to find jobs. It basically like prioritizes your post. It's up to you. You can either start with the free and see what happens, or if you're in a hurry, promote.
And in all my ads, I always ask them to send me a sample. Now, keep in mind that when they send a sample, you don't really know if it's something they wrote or if they're just trying to get the job. But getting a sample will at least give you a sense of their tone, their abilities, maybe some of the professionalism. You can then take that and Google search it and see if it's ever been posted anywhere, just to make sure that it's really them, that it's not something they just copied off the internet to get the job.
Yeah, that's a good point. And look for those with a style that's similar to the site you're creating content for. At this stage, you're looking to note their voice and also how they lay out their work to make sure that it's in line with what you're looking for. So, are they writing very dense, word-heavy content in paragraph form that's more appropriate for, say, a publication or a magazine or a newspaper? Or are they writing blog-style content that's got, that's really image-heavy, that's got really short snippets? What style are you looking for? And find someone who's actively writing that way. It's just going to make your learning curve shorter.
So once you've reviewed the candidates and seen some of their samples and you've decided the ones that you kind of want to know more about, send them an email and ask them to come up with topics around your vertical. So if you're a dentist, say, I want you to come up with 10 topics around dentist stuff. Or if you're a marketer, right? I want you to come up with 10 topics around marketing. Or if you're a HVAC or financial, just tell them you want to get them to give you 10 topics around the subject matter that you want. Yeah,
probably somewhat more specific than that, something that broad. Like if, for example, you were providing legal services. I mean, you don't want to just say, get me 10 topics on legal services. You want it to be, 10 topics around this subject, general subject matter. So it would be something like attorney services related to car accidents. You want to just kind of give them enough specifics to be able to create engaging topics. And basically, you also want to ask them to give you the topic with the headline as well, because you want to see how well they craft eye-catching, engaging headlines. That's going to be one of the biggest keys to get people to click through onto your content is how it's presented. And so headlines are hugely important. So this is an important step to make sure you don't skip at this stage.
and then give them some examples of sites that you already like the content on. So remember, you've already spent time on BuzzSumo, so you've likely come across content that you like. And so send them samples. Say, hey, I really liked the style of this article, or I really like the tone of this one, or I really like the way this one was laid out. Give them the ideas that you've already got so they can kind of get an idea of what you're looking for.
So the next step here is for those that gave you the best topics and headlines, you're going to choose your favorite topic that they supplied and have them write you an outline for the piece, along with an introduction and a conclusion paragraph. So this is basically getting an idea of what, if they expanded that topic into content, what it would include. This lets you weed out as well at this stage those that there's going to be those at this point that give you some pushback and say, oh, I don't work for free. Yeah. Those are the people that are going to be harder to work with, honestly. And you're not looking to ask them for content that you're going to actually use. You're looking to use this process to find someone who's going to be creating, ideally, multiple pieces of content for you over who knows how long. You want them to commit to the process at this point and know that they're amenable to putting in a little bit of effort to get screened. Yeah. You don't want someone who's going to push back so early in this stage. Yeah. Identify those candidates that are willing to go to the effort to really apply for the job.
Yeah. So by now you should have 2 or 3 top candidates, people that have gone through this process. And then at this point, I just put my money where my mouth is. Open up a PayPal account if you don't already have one, put a little money in there, and pay each one of the candidates that you like $20 to $30 to finish the piece that they just gave you the outline with the with the introduction paragraph and the conclusion paragraph. Say, hey, just finish this piece. I want you to write the whole piece. I'm going to give you $20 or $30 to finish it. And that way you can really get a sense for what they can do. Plus, you get some pieces of content. You might get 2 to 6 pieces of content out of this that then you can go use because you just paid for it.
Now, the key here is that you're not going to do this with 7 candidates. You're going to pick like your top 2 to 3. Again, you're vetting people not for the free content or the low price content that you're having them create in the introductory phase. You're looking to establish a relationship with someone that you can go and have create for you several different pieces of content. I think that your strategy would be different if you're just literally looking for 1 or 2 pieces. Yeah. You would flip this entirely and basically really provide that specific subject and topic to your potential candidates. And then, you would pay for the content that you wanted from those that you had established had the most likelihood of creating you the piece you wanted. So this model is really more for, creating, like I said, a relationship with an ongoing copywriter.
Especially if you want content ongoing. Like
yes.
If you're right. If you're only going to write 2 or 3 blog posts and then you're done, this isn't going to be worth it to you to go through this whole process. But if you're going to be writing content once or twice a month, this is exactly what you want.
Yep. And keep in mind, too, if images are important, you want to have them actually put images in this sample piece because you want to be looking for where they place images in the piece, how they source those images, if they've captured them from someplace, where they're going to actually structure the layout of a finished piece. And obviously, then it's more usable for you.
Yeah. All right. So now that we've written a piece of content, and it's the most greatest, bestest piece of content ever on the planet, what are we going to do with that? We're just going to put it up on the internet.
Because if you post it, they will come.
Oh, yeah. We're done now.
Done. At this stage, it's going to come down to how you are going to promote that content piece.
What? Why do I promote it? I wrote a great piece of content. They should just come to it and love it.
Unfortunately, I mentioned it in the opening. Our internet these days is so saturated with content. There's no way someone's going to find that blog post you created, regardless of how amazingly awesome it is. They're just not going to ever find it if you don't promote it and promote it actively. So,
and the reason I'm kind of hammering or making fun of it is this is the one thing that clients are always coming to us when they talk about social media. They say, well, if you just post things on social media, customers will just come, and it's just not real.
Yeah,
it's like opening up a retail store in a busy mall and just assuming customers will come in. You still have to promote. You still have to get people to come in and know who you are and what you're doing and everything else. So, if you're not promoting your content, it's just going to die on the vine.
At this stage, you could look for pro blogger candidates that know how to promote content. So you could make that one of your requirements for your candidate. it might be a little harder to identify someone or find a candidate that both speaks to your vertical and also knows how to promote. So it could limit your pool, but that's one option.
You can also go to upwork.com and look for people that can promote content. It's a little better source than, say, like Fiverr. Upwork.com is going to give you somebody who's a little more professional. You'll be able to see what kinds of content they promoted before and maybe even get an idea of how they do it. And then they'll do, obviously, the labor for it.
You could go back to BuzzSumo and see who's linking to similar content and do your own content promotion organically. A bit of a long play there and pretty time consuming. So just know what you're taking on if you're going to go that route.
Yeah, that's where you have to pay for the pro version of BuzzSumo. Brian Dean has a great article about the skyscraper method, and he basically uses BuzzSumo to find the best content on the web, who's sharing it, how often it's been posted, what kind of traffic there is to it. And then he uses that to go back and promote his content. And so he'll say, like, hey, you shared this article on Twitter about the top 10 ways to make your teeth white. Here, I wrote this great article about the 11 best ways to make your teeth white.
Yeah.
You share my piece too.
It's not as easy as it sounds. I know we've discussed that method as well ourselves. And it can happen, but it's challenging in, like I said, this very content saturated market to get your article to get any traction.
And consider breaking your article into different types of content, right? So if you've written a piece, that's awesome. Now maybe just stand in front of a camera and summarize the piece, right? So that way you've got video and the written content. Then you can also make a podcast about it and talk about in a long form section, kind of like what we do.
Yeah.
You can also do an animated video or an infographic about your content. So you can break this one piece of content that maybe you spend $500 to create and create 5 different pieces of content just from the one.
To be able to target different platforms more effectively.
That way you can get out to more audiences, because people who watch videos don't necessarily listen to podcasts, don't necessarily read articles, don't necessarily download ebooks. So you want to make sure that you're trying to hit your market in every possible way.
It's true. So, and then obviously your easiest is going to be to pay to get that piece of content promoted, and you're going to run ads to content. Now, a lot of people push back at this suggestion because they've already paid to create the content. They're in the mindset of an SEO-based world where people are just going to search and find my material, and so I shouldn't have to pay to drive traffic to it. It's, like I said, very saturated market. And you may get leads, but it's going to be a very slow trickle over a very long time. And so it's better to drive particularly cold leads to content in order to warm them for future sales-related engagement.
So making an ad on Facebook, for example, would be a good job, or a pay-per-click ad on Google, hitting your main keywords, going to your piece of content. LinkedIn is another great place to promote business-to-business content, because that's where people are looking to consume that sort of thing.
Yep.
But yeah, just throwing it up on the internet or posting it on your Facebook page, hoping you'll get organic traffic from it. It's not going to happen. So if you get traffic through the paid sources, it will boost your SEO. It will boost your organic social. So you just have to put some money behind it these days. And
you want to basically look for opportunities to promote that content on forums and websites where your leads are already going, the same places you went to determine what topics would be timely. Obviously, first you would reach out to that forum and see if they would be interested in posting your content. That would be an organic option first. But if they don't, or they have their own staff writers and they're not, accepting content submissions, then see if you can place an ad on their site that links to your content and allows people to maybe go and get more information about something that they're already in the mindset of getting.
And keep in mind, you don't want to go to a forum and just start spamming your content. Hey, check out my cool piece of content, or jump into a Facebook group and say, hey, check this out. You want to make sure that it's appropriate. Maybe look for people that are asking questions. Quora is a great place. If somebody's asking a question about the type of content that you've already written, then you could just say, hey, yeah, I can answer your question. Here's how you do blah, blah, blah. By the way, I wrote a great article that gets into more detail. Here it is. Hope you enjoy it. Let me know what you think. So you want to do it so that way you're not pushing it on people in an organic setting, because then you'll just be a spammer. Instead, you want to just give it to them as a helpful piece in answering their questions. We could go on forever about how to promote content
It's
to
true.
an audience. I mean, there's probably 1,000 different ways to do it. So we'll probably get into the more detail in a future episode on how to do that.
Yeah, it's a big important piece because you've just spent a lot of money in making this content, and obviously you can't just post it and just wait. You need to do something appropriate with it. So that is your most important piece of, well, actually not. I wouldn't say it's your most important piece. I would just say, it's equally, if not maybe second most important to making the content great to begin with, like relatable, engaging, helpful. I mean, if it's not all of those things, then it doesn't matter how much you promote it. You're going to just be wasting your money.
If you're promoting a piece of dog poop, nobody wants to buy it. So it doesn't matter. If it's dog poop, nobody wants it. But if it's a good piece and you're promoting it well, that's the combination you're looking for.
Content isn't about direct sales. It's a long game.
You want to present yourself as an expert in your field, share helpful information. Remember, you're selling your skills without selling anything at all.
Exactly. When they figure out that they need your product or service, you won't have to sell them. They'll come to you.
No cold calls, no salesman tactics, just leads that are ready to buy.
All right. Well, after 10 action-packed episodes, that wraps up our series on how to gain business-to-business leads without cold calling or knocking on doors.
Now, we've got a lot more planned in the months to come, including one of the really great episodes, I think, is going to be about how to track return on investment on your content marketing, which is really a tricky thing. But it's possible.
It is. If you're liking what you're hearing, rate us on whatever platform you're using to listen in, or better yet, leave us a review.
And check out the show notes and links to the resources we mentioned in today's episode at squirreldigitalmarketing.com/podcast.
Thanks for listening.
I'm Ryan Eldridge.
And I'm Andrea Eldridge.
And thanks for tuning in to Growth Marketer Academy.
This has been Growth Marketer Academy with Ryan and Andrea Eldridge.